Well, I was listening to a friend's band called the Earthlings, and I was listening to a lot of Ween, yeah, Pete Stahl and Dave Ketchen, and they just were able to play whatever they wanted whenever they wanted. And I mean, we play rock and roll, but wanted to keep it open like that, you know.
Co-produced by Josh Homme and Joe Barresi of Hole, Weezer, Fu Manchu and Kyuss fame, the Queens of the Stone Age's self-titled debut album hit record stores in October 1998. The set was immediately acclaimed for its invention, wit, originality and technical wizardry. Here was a quite brilliant collection of solid low-end rumble, melodic hooks, probing lyrical insight and adventurous playing. Creating a new element for the band were Homme's mellifluous, understated yet commanding vocals on top of the blitzkrieg of sound. Previously with Kyuss, Homme had concentrated on guitar and left the vocals to singer John Garcia, but here he was belting them out as well as playing guitar. The debut album was confirmation that a period spent away from the slog of touring, recording and more touring could be beneficial. Steady, tuneful, accessible and ethereal at the same time, it was an ideal album for would-be metal fans who hadn't liked anything since Black Sabbath's first 3 records or the Melvins' last. Labelled as desert rock by the band themselves, it was a musical riot, overspilling with ingenious oddball musical reference points and future vistas. This sabbatical of Josh Homme's had obviously been spent ingesting new musical influences rather than illicit chemicals and herbs. To be sure, it was a full-on band effort, an ensemble piece par excellence, with Hernandez's rock-solid drumming perfectly anchoring such standout selections as the melodic Twisted If Only, the slow sexy Walking on the Sidewalks, the hook-filled You Would Know, and the insistent Regular John. Avon possessed a charging rhythm and a soothing vocal that embalmed the listener, while How to Handle a Rope contained verses bursting with messy guitars before melting into an exquisite, yearning chorus section that bridged the gap between metal and alternative rock. Mexicola featured a lyric of rare, simmering emotional density, candour and existential poetry, the like of which is little heard in any musical genre. Setting sun deals hands of gold, there's velvet eyes in Mexico, just a fall away and all she said was true. You Can't Quit Me Baby pitched its wares with a fairly sturdy rolling bass line and a repetitive guitar figure that remained just a fraction ahead of the beat. The climax of the track, though, sped up into an explosive crescendo of noise with dramatic effect. The protagonist of the tale was bringing his own end to the story, one of massacre and self-mutilation, as he could no longer live with his aching desire for the object of his affection. The Queens managed to bring a superior sense of melodic warmth to the music, with impressive vocal hooks, extraordinary lyrics and bluesy boogie. While Kyuss took time to develop their ideas over longer passages of music, Queens of the Stone Age distilled their visions into condensed, bite-sized pocket symphonies. They had taken the best parts of Kyuss and added more subtlety in exchange for a little less surplus fat. The results made for a leaner, tighter, more focused sound. Drummer Hernandez believed that this approach made for a lot of open space and heat in the music, which reflected the change of environment from Seattle to Palm Desert. The surroundings in the desert were sharper, with no buildings or concrete. As a result, thoughts and musical ideas tended to flow better. For Homme, the transition from Kyuss to Queens of the Stone Age was very much a natural progression. He saw the album as taking the spirit of Kyuss, but moulding the songs into something more finite and trance-like. He likened the differences between the last Kyuss record and The Circus Leaves Town, and the Queen's debut to that between the Stooges' The Idiot and Lust for Life recordings in the late 70s. This first album was one of the most sudden and creatively successful about-faces modern rock had ever seen. In late 1998, a single If Only was released in the US and gained much enthusiasm and support from the alternative radio stations. Josh Homme, Nick Oliveri, Alfredo Hernandez and Dave Catching toured the album at home and abroad for nearly 2 years, performing with hardcore punk and rock acts like Bad Religion, Rage Against the Machine, Hole, Ween and the Smashing Pumpkins. The group received the honour of being voted one of the Rolling Stone magazine's most important hard and heavy bands right now. While in the UK, the album was released by Roadrunner Records to waves of critical acclaim. At the start of 1999, Hernandez decided to leave the group, which left the Queens in desperate need of a competent Styx man. The short-term solution, that of alternating between drummers Gene Troutman and Nicky Lucero, has worked so well that it looks to be permanent. Also in 1999, Oliveri got himself arrested at the Big Day Out festival at the Milton Keynes Bowl in July. Queens of the Stone Age were involved in a small altercation with the UK outfit TerraVision, with whom they shared a dressing room. Although Josh Homme allegedly tried to land a punch on a TerraVision roadie, it was Oliveri who got arrested. He was released and no charges were pressed against him.
So many different things, I can't really put my finger on what it is, as far as there's punk elements, there's heavy rock elements, there's spacey, airy elements, and it can go in any direction at any time, from song to song, and which is, to me, the beautiful thing about this band.
Desperate to maintain the high standards and eclecticism of the debut album, Homme and Oliveri assembled a dizzying array of contributors to assist in the recording of the band's sophomore effort, many of whom had collaborated with or influenced the duo in the past. Screaming Trees' Mark Lanegan appeared, providing some backing and lead vocals, along with his bandmate Barrett Martin. In addition, hardcore stalwart Pete Stahl, Wendy Ray Moan, Rob Halford of Judas Priest, and Like Hell's Nick Oliveri, yes, same name, different bloke, all had a role to play in the recording of the follow-up to the eponymous debut. From the outset, Homme was keen to limit the disc to just 10 songs. He felt it was important not to abuse the storage capacity of the compact disc. Adopting the principle of less is more, Homme wanted to create something as self-enveloped, direct, and definitive as the Stooges' Funhouse, which only featured 7 cuts. The new tunes that would constitute Rated R were recorded analogue to 2 16-track machines at Sound City Studios in Los Angeles, where Kyuss had created their masterpieces Blues for the Red Sun, Sky Valley, and The Circus Leaves Town. Produced by Josh Homme with Chris Goss of the much-acclaimed Masters of Reality and engineered by Grammy Award-winning Trina Shoemaker, these cuts would set the stage for another magnum opus with which to shake rock music to its very foundations. Preceded by the July release of The Lost Art of Keeping a Secret, the Rated R album was let loose upon the record-buying public in August 2000, now on Interscope Records. A monumental effort by the band that even put its predecessor in the shade, Rated R saw Josh Homme finally cast off the overbearing shadow of Kyuss. Providing the ultimate rock and roll antidote to the current glut of crass commercial music shifting units worldwide, the album was a seminal work, the kind of landmark record that will be raved about in 2 decades from now. Dubbed, much to their disdain, stoner rock due to their drug-addled melange of dirty guitar riffs, abstract psychedelics and hallucinogenic atmospherics, the Queen's major label debut featured 11 stunning, incandescent reasons why that term should be buried for good. Now giving rise to comparisons with the Stooges, MC5 and Nirvana, Rated R represented a band reaching a new level of maturity and expression. The melodies were in your face, direct, visceral, thrilling and immediate, like a freight train running with no stop in its sights. From the moment the first chord was unleashed, it was crystal clear that the band meant business. The opening, demented, irresistibly catchy feel-good hit of the summer was in essence a ferocious litany of substance abuse, mentioning every drug known to man. The good Dr. Homme and his cohorts delivered their fiendish prescription of nicotine, Valium, Vicodin, marijuana, ecstasy and alcohol, before adding a killer dose of cocaine in a startling 2.5-minute 2-chord mantra. One could imagine the record company suits squirming in their seats when they first heard this. The neat, catchy title indicated that perhaps the song was an upbeat pop radio hit with which to promote the album, but one listen would have told them otherwise. The band recorded it to make a point about the arbitrary draconian censorship system in the USA. As they pointed out, the track actually contained no swearing of any kind, and didn't even hint at promoting drugs as a way of life. Incidentally, it would become a single in November 2000, backed by Never Say Never, a cut that recalled the Knack's My Sharona. The Queens also thought that hitting hard with the opening song would cut out the tedious stoner rock thing, which has become something of an obsession with the press. They've always maintained that they were more than just a stoner rock band, and they were particularly irritated by the implication that all they did all day was sit around smoking weed. What followed the opening track could only be described as a potent, astonishing, audacious synthesis of influences, all tastefully melded together by a respect for tradition and a desire to explore new parameters in music making. Some of the songs floated like half-remembered reveries, others grabbed the listener by the throat, and some took them off to strange Byzantine places of the imagination. With all its evocative phraseology, poetic associations, and unusual juxtapositions, Rated R dipped its toes into realms of musical fantasy, hitherto ignored by the rock scene. There were bits you could identify. A bit of Pixies here, something that sounded like a Bleak Bowie album track there, and a Devo feel on the riff-laden Monster in the Parasol. The decadent, nicotine-stained pop of lead single The Lost Art of Keeping a Secret was a brooding combination of metallic, scathing guitar riffs and blacker-than Spinal Tap humour, simmering ominously before bursting into life with an infectious chorus. The delightful Autopilot was a hushed, fragile and beautiful slice of acoustic bliss, a true pearl. Mark Lanegan injected another colour into the album's sonic palette, with his own unmistakable deep vocals, sounding like he was on his way home from an all-night bender on his majestic centrepiece, the swelling orgasmic rush that was In the Fade. This was one of the record's standouts, a future classic. Oliveri's vocals on Quick and to the Pointless and Tension Head were similarly incendiary and emotion-packed, while the monumental, sprawling closing track, I Think I Lost My Headache, was something else entirely, a dizzying blast of supernatural jazz horns. Rated R catapulted the Queens into the stratosphere reserved for rock legends, and soon they were gracing the front covers of magazines and receiving masses of acclaim and attention.